This is Goals with Soul, the podcast for visionary coaches and entrepreneurs, building your business with inspired action. In alignment with your mission and authentic message, so you can create impact for your soul clients and feel lit up every day. I'm your host, Jo Ingram, married mum of 3 daughters from London and a former ad agency director turned business coach and strategist. In Goals with Soul, we blend revenue generation with energetics, marketing strategies with pranic healing, and ambitious business goals with our soul's desires. If you're looking to build your business with less efforting and more ease, this is the podcast for you. Let's dive in. Welcome to Goals with Soul. I'm Joanna Ingram. And today I'm talking to Jane Marie, who is a talented life coach, blending her knowledge of Ayurveda and yoga to help her clients create the freedom that they desire. She fuses Eastern holistic modalities with a Westernized twist to create the self-love connection that we as busy and overthinking women's desire to live confidently in fulfillment in our lives. As well as that, Jane has been a personal messaging client of mine, and I always love touching base and catching up with clients' progress, sharing their wisdom and championing their visibility. Listening to hear particularly Jane's transformation and evolution through the messaging work into the beautiful blend of uniqueness that she shares with her clients now. Let's dive in. Hello, Jane. Welcome to Goals with Soul.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, fantastic. I'm so pleased that you joined me today, not least because you share the most phenomenal stuff about yoga, life coaching, and everything beyond, but also that you've been a personal client of mine. And it's always amazing to touch base again with someone I work with, and I know so much about your transition and transformation and find out more about what you're doing today. So let's dive in.
Awesome. Yes, I am so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me today.
Tell us a little bit about your journey to this point of sharing what you do in the way that you do around your yoga and life coaching. What's the transition been over the last, year now? Is it slightly more, 2 years?
Yeah, it's just a little over a year. Yeah. Yes. As I've learned from you in so many ways, there's an iteration and an iteration and iteration. And so I have walked that path, and I have really gone back to where my practices have all began. So where my ideas have stemmed from, where I have expanded, and it's all on the yoga mat. And it's a place where for a while I actually rejected yoga, even though I still practiced it. But, and I think that's why I was able to step away from that space and come back to it as I am now and see really how to blend yoga, Ayurveda, and coaching together to help others.
Now, first up, yoga. I love yoga. Absolutely love it. In fact, before the pandemic, I was a regular at the Bikram yoga studio, and I wasn't even in the back row, which is significant for anyone that's ever done Bikram. But I have to be honest that, through lockdown and beyond, I have not been back. It was a little bit too intense for me, and I'm too out of practice to get back into it. But in fact, when we got off from this call, I'm off to my yoga class. And I know
Lovely.
Yeah, I know that yoga's become incredibly popular. So many people are doing it. And yet so many more are coming into it new every single month, every single year, because of the amazing benefits in general. And I know that you've been in this space for years. What is it, do you think, that calls people into yoga, and what calls you, back time and time again onto the mat?
Yeah, you're really moving into a space where you're doing a mind, body, spirit practice. Well, let's just say everybody is overstimulated. And when you step into a space like a yoga studio where there's calmness, where you're asked to be quiet, where you're moving, and sometimes it won't even happen for people till Shavasana that their mind quiets down. But it's a space that's designated for that relief from overstimulation. So your body can actually shift into a parasympathetic state, and you can feel the well-being from that space. And so, we call that yoga bliss, like that shavasana state when you leave. And that's really what's happening when people are able to go into that space. And of course, so many other amazing processes are going on because their body's able to finally relax. There's a lot of healing and a lot of sorting out and letting go. And so so many people are like, well, my doctor told me to start yoga, or my friend made me come to this class. And nobody really knows until they allow themselves to be in that space.
No, I completely hear you about that opportunity to just stop the chattering mind and the overthinking and just have designated time and space to clear that thinking, and also flexibility, right? It's like
Yeah.
actually moving. I spend way too much time sitting at my desk, as I know many of us do. And you tend to realize after a while that if you sit in a particular position, you kind of get cramped up. And one of the things I adore about yoga is just being able to keep that flexibility and that movement, that sort of somatic practice and connection to the body that's so easy to lose if you don't have a way of accessing it, right?
Yeah, totally, 100%. And it's exactly that movement. Like you're not going to go to a gym and necessarily try to put your leg on your upper tricep and see how that feels, right? But it also invites this exploration. And it's in my classes, it's like this where you are really invited to be playful and explore. Um, but in more traditional lead classes, you're doing it just by following the instructor, right? So you are undoing the sitting. You're always doing what you do every day. So you go into your yoga class to physically like undo it, bring yourself back, so then you can go do that again. Because if you're not moving all the parts of your body, then you get stagnant and you get stuck, and you can feel those aches and pains and cricks and
Mm.
cracks.
And where does the Ayurvedic piece come from? Because I've got to say, I know of it, I know bits about it, but I don't know
Yeah.
a massive amount about it. And I'm sure that someone listening is thinking exactly the same. They're like, huh, yeah, I've heard of that, but like, what's that about? Can you fill us in a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So Ayurveda is an ancient practice from India. It means the study of life, right? So it goes hand in hand with yoga and dates back all the way to the Vedic texts as well. And so Ayurveda is based off of elements and qualities. And so a lot of people immediately think of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Specifically for Ayurveda, the science of life, it goes through different qualities per the elements. And it really is a way to see that universal branch of life spread out and have limbs in different directions and where the roots are all coming from. And so these are really commonly known, as I said, with Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Right, Vata is more air, and I'm not going to go into all the details. Pitta is more fire, and Kapha is more earth, and they have characteristics and traits that go along with these three, what we call doshas, we can call categories. So everybody is a mixture of three, but two predominant. And so through knowing that is your constitution, basically when you get into Ayurveda, it's a self-exploration and a study of life. And so you're moving from a place of knowing what your constitution is, what created you, what were the energies of the people who conceived you, and what was that whole in utero process like, and all this creating you. And then there's this other part of you now, and is that in balance or is that not in balance? And that's how we would be on our day-to-day basis, and pairing those two spaces or ideas or energies of ourselves, of our constitution and where we are now, and like feathering those petals to create that balance in our space and life as we move. And
Yeah.
this can branch into like foods that you eat, spaces that you're in, climates that you're in, clothes that you wear, colors that you wear.
One of the things that is inherent in the work that I do is joining the dots between different elements and interests, passions, experiences that you have personally. And hearing you talking about these things, I'm just dying to know, like, how do you blend your life coaching abilities and your yoga expertise and passion and all the knowledge that you just shared about Ayurvedic practice into the solution that you create for your clients?
Yeah, so I approach Ayurveda, and this might be taboo, but so is my yoga, and that's how I roll. So, like, I approach Ayurveda from a tridoshic place, because we are always seeking to look outward, to have that validation, oh, I took this quiz, it said I'm this, or this teacher one day said I'm this, so I must be that. And so instead of really focusing on what you are and where you are now, I do address that and I do go through that with my clients in a light-hearted way, but I really move from a place of a tridoshic life, right? So I'll paint the picture of what an imbalance would look like for a pitta, and I'll paint the picture of what an imbalance would look like for a vata, but still with a parigraha from yoga coming in to non-attachment. And what the next picture I paint is a tridoshic life. So understanding moving through your day and your elements and the choices and decisions that you make and what might bring you out of balance or what might bring you back into balance. And we covered this tridoshic approach to life and to their choices and where they're putting their time, their effort, their energy, not only in like the physical, but also the mental and also in eating, right? We eat every day, and what we eat and how we eat really bring us back into balance or push us out of balance.
Yeah, I really love the way you blended that. And it is really hard for people, whether coaches, entrepreneurs, women in business, all of those areas create such a hectic mind, such confusion, and making decisions, procrastinating, overthinking can keep us really, really stuck. And I know there are so many different modalities that are on offer now for us to go to. And I think it's becoming more and more common and more interesting to turn to those Eastern modalities, the ones that have stood through all of those generations, and start to bring those elements into our Western lives.
Yeah, most definitely. And that's really kind of where, so that's where coaching really came into my sphere because we're evolving. Like we're evolving as people, we're evolving as a species, as a race, as a part of the earth, as a part of the planet. And to take something and make it applicable for people today was really creating this fusion and blend and understanding of continuing to evolve, of not being strict about something, but letting things come in, letting them wash over you, learning from them and moving from that space because these are ancient old practices, study of life. The monkey mind was a thing then and it is still a thing now. And it's really learning to tame that part of us and having these parts in balance, whether it's our aligning our chakras, um, keeping our doshas in balance as we can. Life is going to happen, right? So it's that same overthinking and striving for perfection. It's like there's no place to go other than the next day and figure out where can I bring balance into my life with all that I have going on, because when you have those practices, so it's like that joy on the mat, and that's what when you bring it off and you can see how can you hold a perspective right now for yourself and put what you need into practice, into play in this moment, then it helps aside that monkey mind. It helps keep the shoulders relaxed and down and the jaw not clenched. It allows you to be in a position where you can make those decisions for yourself without feeling the angst, the stress, and the overthinking.
Yeah, it's so clear to me. I'm just sort of drifting away as you're talking, thinking about my own yoga practice and thinking about getting on the mat and how that hour passes without a blink of an eye. And I don't think of anything else because I'm in my practice. And to be fair, I'm also usually being stretched slightly out my comfort zone and I'm having to concentrate. But I guess that's a part of yoga practice, is that as we progress, we're always trying something that's a little harder for us to do. So then we're like completely mindful of how we're moving, and is my positioning right? Am I sitting in just the right way, or am I flexing in the right way? Do you find that yoga concentration is something you encourage in your clients, or do you see it from a different perspective?
That's a great question. I see it from a different perspective, and that's why I was saying, um, perhaps one may think my approaches are a little taboo, but I come from my heart, right? And I come from a place of playfulness, and that is why my practice is the way it is. And it is not, I am not going to hold you in warrior two and then walk around the room and then ask you to smile, because the way we move, you will just naturally smile. The way we move, it is in motion almost the whole time. We have like a slower warm up and a slow cool down. But when we're really in it, you are able to tap into the flow. You are able to get out of here, let it go, and move. And it's about movement. It is about, like you said, like getting rid of the sitting patterns and the some scars that you create in your body every day and undoing them. And in my practice, it is all about fluidity and keeping that movement.
I was just thinking, you're using the word movement, and you were talking about how your yoga practice is the magic of the movement. But then earlier, when we were talking about the work that you do with your life coaching clients as well, who of course are your yoga clients, because it's all the integrated program that you deliver, you were talking about how they typically are trying to make decisions about literally day to day, what they eat, what they do, what they choose in their time, how their next day will be. And that's about movement too, about moving out of stagnancy into the next decision, into the next aligned position, whether that's a small decision like what am I going to eat today, or a big decision about what's my next job going to be, how am I going to resolve my relationship, and things that typically in life coaching you start to get into those areas. And I know that we've worked together in the past, but I know too about how important iteration is. And I just getting the word movement for you really strongly. It's like helping people move through their lives, both physically, somatically, and also metaphorically and mentally through their decision making. I think is very powerful. At least that's what you're transmitting to me.
Okay, no, I appreciate that, because I mean, I've been offering this style of yoga. It's Buddha inspired. I call it soulful flow now. And it is those releases that I have witnessed with women in this space, and just really creating more space for that release and openness to receive, to then shift into their next level.
It's really powerful. And it's like reminds me a lot of some of the work that we were sharing when we were working together, last year, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, I'm so excited and delighted to see how bold you are in what you share, and how visible and inspiring your content is. I think it's something that so many struggle with, actually getting into that space where they're really excited to share what they're doing and open up their lives in a really authentic way that's helping their ideal clients to sort of see what it is in that lifestyle and that potential that's real for them. So I'm curious, and I'd love to regroup with you on this. What is it like about messaging that helps you, or helped you, particularly in our work last year, get to the place that you're sharing so authentically now?
Well, I will say I've binged on your podcast entire summer last summer. And a lot of it, obviously it's me, but a lot of it was my choice in choosing a foundation to work with you. Like, I think starting the precipice of my business and working with someone whose focus is messaging really put that at the forefront. It allowed that to be a place to move from for me, not, what is the color of this, or is this format going to work, or should I use this program or that program? It really allowed, when I have something that I want to share, to move from that place. and to understand, and in your coaching of iterating, to allow that to be okay. I do believe a lot of other coaches out there, as they start, they're afraid to move, they're afraid to pivot, they're afraid to change. And for me, I had that hands up in the air moment. And for me, it's coaching. And let's dial that back a little bit, because it really came down to my throat chakra and a lot of healing that needed to happen with my throat and my voice and connecting with my authentic truth. And the only way to do that is to keep using it. And I have found that to be absolutely an amazing practice in my business, and not something. And do I stutter sometimes? Do I re-record videos? I'm like, what was I even doing? Sure, of course, but I keep going, and I know that I cannot be anybody else but me. And it's still pushing through those ideas and those constructs that are already out there, that, yoga, it needs to be like, imagine Iyengar yoga. It's very alignment based, and someone a student of Iyengar would come into my class would probably feel really uncomfortable, and being okay with that, and saying, I have a lot of respect for yoga. I have studied it for over 10 years, and I I understand the roots and the tradition in it, and I also believe in the evolution, and I believe that for me as a person, and that has allowed my voice to continue to be out there and evolve. And so I go back to those beliefs that I have. Um, and that, paired with a foundation from you of learning so much about messaging, has really been a place to move from for me.
I mean, that fills my heart, because what you're talking about, being an individual in business, is what my mission's all about. And it's about championing not just individuality, but the confidence to be yourself and share that and be paid in service of the value that you provide, that doesn't have to be in the image of anybody else's. And how you've uniquely blended your Yogini practice with your Ayurveda and your life coaching skills is, I mean, one of a kind. Nobody else is going to be blending in exactly that way. And it excites me too to hear about you talking about the work around the throat chakra, because I know that when I first stepped into sharing my energetic practices as part of my messaging programs, it took a bit of a leap of faith to say, well, I don't need to be producing brand messaging as though I was in corporate. I'm working with intuitive spiritual coaches. And what I know I needed was to really understand my energy and to work with that as a way of elevating my brand messaging and getting aligned with my marketing. And ever since I
Yeah.
dialed that in for myself, that's exactly what I teach. And I'm seeing success with my clients because of the blend of that, not in spite of it, but because of it. And it's just been so encouraging to bring all of you, all the bits you desire, into your business. And Jane, I just want to celebrate you for just crafting something that's not just uniquely you, but clearly really helps those people that are getting on the mat and off the mat with you.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
We always love to finish Goals with Soul with a piece of inspired action. For anyone inspired to think about using this kind of blend to help them move forward in their lives, was there anything that they could do simply in the next day or so?
One thing you said about food, like choosing what to eat every day, I'm not even going to complicate it. I would just notice the flavors that you tend to taste. And that could be even just in eating the food. Are you tasting the food? And then take it to the next level. What are the flavors that you incorporate? Are you only salty? Right? Are you only sweet? Are you missing pungent, bitter, sour? Or are you just hanging out over there in sour? Because it's like all of life is coming from an element, and so are our flavors and our tastes. And if we don't have that same like experience in tasting our food, then we're not really tasting our life. Yeah, so being able to slow down and just not trying to get to the next bite to put the plate up so you can run and do the next thing, but taste it. And maybe you might notice there are some flavors that you could add.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. In fact, I'm going to be thinking of that when I eat my next meal after my yoga class. And
Love it.
if people would like to learn a little bit more about your work and find you online, where's the best place to do that?
Yeah, I mostly am on Instagram, so that would be a great place to start. At This is Jane Marie, and that's where you can find me. And please reach out, DM me. I'd love to hear from you.
And I will drop that link in the show notes. Jane, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much. It's been fun. It's great to see you.
And my thanks again to Jane Marie. And if you're ready to elevate your brand messaging this side of the summer and you haven't yet watched my free messaging training, it's time to jump in and learn the 3 ways to ensure your messaging is authentic, aligned, on point, and attracting those soul clients you most want to work with. I'm going to drop the link in the show notes. So have an inspired action week. Take care. Bye now.